We're getting ready to leave for the weekend. We're taking the Scamp out. It's been a few weeks. Probably doesn't seem like it in YouTube world, but for us it's been a few weeks since we've been able to take the Scamp out. And this weekend we are going to the New Jersey Festival of Ballooning. This is something that I used to do every single year with my friends before Patrick was in the picture. And we kind of get out of the habit of going. So I'm excited that we're getting back into that tradition of going to the Balloon Festival every year, because it's really a fun time, and now we have the Scamp instead of a tent, so that makes it that much better. The weekend weather was looking really good. It was warm but pretty calm, not too many clouds, and that's important when you're going to a hot air balloon festival because they are very touchy with the weather. If the wind is too strong or there's a threat of a storm or anything that could disrupt their movement, then the hot air balloons won't go up. It's still a fun festival, but of course you're always hoping that the hot air balloons are going to take off. But I will say that one of our favorite things about this weekend was the drive up. It was so pretty. We took the back way. We didn't want to be on the parkway. We've driven the parkway hundreds of times. So we went the back way past Trenton, and it was so pretty. As we pulled into Spruce Run State Park, we noticed another camper in front of us that looked very familiar. It was a 13-foot Scamp. It'd be funny if we were next to them. It's the Scamp corner. It was a little bit late as we were arriving at the campground. As we came up to the ranger station, there was actually somebody in there who was stopping each of the campers and talking to them to let us know that the office was closed and that we would have to come back tomorrow to officially check in, which we thought was kind of funny, and really, now looking back, was just the first in a series of odd experiences that we had at Spruce Run that weekend. After circling the campground a couple of times, getting really confused, we realized that our camping spot was actually this area right on the edge of the parking lot that didn't look like a campsite at all, but we figured it out when we saw our number on the power tower. So we were right across from the bathrooms. We made it here just as it was getting dark, which was nice. It helped us to be able to actually see the numbers on the campsites, but it is very busy and very loud. I know it's a weekend, state park. I've never been on this side of the park. We've always tent camped when I was here on the other side over there. I'm gonna have to walk around tomorrow when the sun comes out so I can kind of figure out where I'm at. There's a lot going on, and the sites here with the hookups are really kind of exposed. We're directly across from the bathroom, so there's constantly people walking around our camper. So I'm glad that we are here for the Balloon Festival and we're not like here to camp. We're not actually going to like sit out and spend time by a campfire or a picnic table. Actually, I don't think we have a picnic table or a campfire. We just have hookups on the side of the parking lot. So it's a little odd. It'll do. We won't really be here that much.
Glad we have our own bathroom.
Yeah, I'm glad we have a bathroom.
Lifesaver.
It's not bad, but it's just so busy.
Yeah.
We have all of our curtains closed because it is so busy here and we really don't have any privacy. We're basically parked on the side of the parking lot, but it is actually quieting down a bit. This is for sure the busiest campsite we have ever had, the noisiest and the busiest, because we're right across from the bathroom and behind us are all the tents, so everybody keeps walking like directly around the camper to get to the bathroom. So that's that's been an experience. But we had breakfast, we had coffee, and now we're gonna probably walk around, check things out so that we can pick out a different campsite when we come back next year. Even though I've camped here about 4 times, I've never actually walked around and explored the park very much because I was always here just for the Balloon Festival. So we walked around and checked out some of the other sites, and we went down to the beach area Now, unfortunately, the lake at Spruce Run is closed for swimming this year because they would normally have this great swimming beach, but there's an algae bloom currently that is dangerous to people and animals, so they don't want you going in the water. They do still have rentals for stand-up paddle boards, kayaks, and boats, which looked really fun, and we definitely would have done if we had a little bit more time.
Actually, I do see them. Right here.
Fish? Yeah. Normally, this is probably a super busy area with lots of people going swimming, so maybe it's actually less busy this weekend than it would normally be. Who knows? After walking around and exploring the park a bit, we went back to the Scamp, and our plan was to make lunch and hang out for a little while, but at that point, there was a full-blown dance party and very loud music going on right behind our camper, and I really was not enjoying it, so we decided it was time to head into the Balloon Festival early.
Hi, ma'am.
Hello, just parking?
We have tickets. Yeah.
we already have tickets.
Yeah.
Enjoy, guys.
Thank you.
The nice thing was, since we got there early, we got a very good parking spot. Later on, when we were leaving, this entire field was full of cars. The other benefit of getting into the festival early was that it was not super crowded. This was actually pretty good. There weren't long lines at the food vendors and giant groups of people just yet. So we were able to find some seating in one of the big shade tents that they had, which was very necessary because it was sunny and there was no breeze during the day. The air was very, very still. We were waiting for the Human Cannonball show, which was right next to this tent. That's just one of the interesting things that you'll get to see at the Balloon Festival every year. Then we went to walk around and check out the area. We wanted to see where the stage was for the concert later. That's always a great part of the Balloon Festival. And they usually have some local bands that are playing there during the day.
Check out Future Tiny House.
One of the vendors had this shed which was styled very much like a tiny house. No insulation, but it could so easily be converted into an adorable tiny house. We can make it work. We walked down to the other end of the festival grounds, or the airport, and we watched the helicopters taking off. They were doing short tours that you could pay to go up in a helicopter, and they would fly you around the airport to give you probably a very nice aerial view. So there were constantly helicopters going around, and it was really fun to go over and watch the area where they were loading, unloading people, and just see the skill of these pilots landing in such a busy area. Even though it was early in the day, there was still a very significant line of people waiting for the helicopter rides, so we did not want to wait in that line. Maybe it'll be something that we do in the future if we come back to the Balloon Festival, because it does look like a very neat experience. After we were done watching the helicopters, we walked over to the other side of the fairgrounds because they had started to blow up the hot air balloons on the ground. These are retired hot air balloons that they use just so that you can get close to them, and you're actually allowed to walk inside of them to get a better understanding of the inner workings of these really neat things. After we got to check out some of the hot air balloons up close, we headed over to the main field. This is where everybody sets up their chairs and their blankets to wait for the actual balloon launch. Now, we didn't realize you can actually bring your chairs in earlier and put them down to save your spot. We went back to the car and got our camping chairs, which we always have with us, which has come in handy so many times, especially now because we were sitting and waiting for quite a bit. All day the air was very still and very quiet, but just around sunset there started to be a rather strong breeze.
Balloons, as I've explained to people sometimes in the past, only fly within 3 hours of sunrise and within 3 hours of sunset. And the reason for that is, during the middle of the day, when the sun is higher in the air, it heats the Earth's surface, and the air just below that surface is kind of like the oil in a frying pan. It gets hot, and hot air rises. So during the day, that hot air rising is what creates all of those billowy clouds that you saw earlier this afternoon, and we still have some of them to the northwest that you can see. It also creates side wind. But maybe we could stop these winds and get a little something happening later on. So stand by, and we'll let you know as we go, and we're going to still hope for the best. Hang in there with us, and we'll hang in with you.
After several minutes of people explaining the weather patterns to us, we started to realize that the balloon launch was probably not going to happen that night. So instead, some of the crews unpacked their balloons and started to inflate them on the ground, just so that we could get an idea of the process that they go through of taking the basket out and hooking it up to the balloon and firing everything up. This made a nice photo opportunity at least, so that kept the crowd pretty happy. You could definitely see as they were inflating the balloons, they were getting pushed around a lot by the wind. So it definitely would not have been safe for all of these balloons to go up because they really don't have steering, which is very concerning. But we knew that we still had the concert to look forward to, and they were going to inflate a few more of the hot air balloons during the concert for what they call a balloon glow. We actually got to see them inflate quite a few balloons, and with the sunset in the background, it was still just a very enjoyable experience. But then we headed over to the concert area to get ready to see Barenaked Ladies, which are always a very fun, entertaining show.
Like so far, I would have to say, not much of a balloon fest.
Oh, hey, wait a minute.
It's sort of a helicopter fest so far. Just from what I've seen from here, they're starting to come up over here. I can see it.
Patience.
It's going to be beautiful. We're going to get through this thing, and so I'm going to send this song out to all the researchers, all the doctors, all the nurses, all the frontline workers who are helping us get through this. This one is called Looking Up. The police are standing by side stage. The ballooning police. 2 guys in a scissor lift. Not even real police.
Takes them a while to get there, but they'll get you. Balloon police, they're hanging out of my head.
Our favorite part about seeing Barenaked Ladies in concert is that they just have a really fun time on stage. They have a great sense of humor and they're always joking around with each other. They just seem to enjoy performing so much. And they're at the Balloon Festival pretty much every year since it started.
Long way to be here for our first show back in America, so thank you for doing that. It's because of what you guys do for us that we get to do what we love to do. We're so grateful to be here tonight. Thank you for having us. Thank you for having us for over 30 years.
As the concert ended, we headed back to the car to go back to the campground, but we had a surprise waiting for us when we got there.
Can I go around? This is the boat launch.
The gate to get into the campground was closed and locked. We weren't sure what to do to get back to the Scamp.
This is the only way to go.
We go up the one way.
I'm gonna have to.
We ended up driving around the gate and going up a one-way. It was the only way we could figure out to get back to the Scamp. we woke up the next morning to a very loud and chaotic campground as all of the tent campers behind us were packing up and getting ready to go. We lingered a little bit longer and waited just until checkout time, so we actually got to see some quiet. Now it's just about time for us to leave, and it's finally quiet enough for me to film. I wasn't able to film anything yesterday because there was very loud music all over the place at the campground, and I think it was just bad luck. We picked a site over here because it was the last one with hookups, and there ended up being like a big family reunion right behind us, and it was the noisiest camping experience I've ever had. I guess I was trying to be understanding, like everyone's coming out of COVID, everyone wants to have a good time, but it was just like kind of chaos all around our campsite. So we ended up just going into the balloon festival earlier. This is very ironic to me because the last time I camped here, I almost got kicked out, which is a funny story. When I used to come here with my friends every year for the balloon festival, so it was probably almost 10 years ago, so I was about 26, and we would get a couple campsites over on the water and go to the balloon festival, come back, hang out, have a campfire. And I wasn't even thinking, I had just been on a trip to some national parks, and in the national parks it's totally fine to drink. You can buy alcohol, you can have a beer, it's not a big deal. Not thinking, now I'm in a New Jersey state park, and two of my friends who I was with had just gone on this awesome trip to Maine, and when they were in Maine, they stopped at a microbrewery and they got this blueberry beer. It was like the specialty that they had there, and they were talking about it, and they were like, oh, it's in the car, do you guys want to try it? And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. Not thinking. So maybe a minute, 2 minutes later, as I'm holding this beer sitting by the campfire, the park police come up, and I was the person whose name was on the campsite, so of course I was the responsible party holding a beer. The park police was very unhappy with me at that moment and said that I had violated the rules and said that all three of us were going to be kicked out because of that, which is like even funnier to me because I hardly ever drink, and I had literally taken like one sip out of that beer, and nobody there was drunk, nobody was being rowdy or anything. So it was just one of those weird things, right? So after like pleading with the park ranger, like begging, I poured out the beer and I was like, it's gone, I'm sorry, lapse of judgment. Finally they were like, okay, but we're gonna check on you again, and if anything else happens, you guys are out. So that was the last time that I camped here, and I really think after that was when my friends and everybody was kind of like, all right, that wasn't the greatest experience. So I think that's what actually stopped us from doing this, and it was really my fault. I should have known better. It's New Jersey. You cannot have alcohol, and you definitely cannot have dogs here. That's the other thing that I find really ironic is mass chaos, people running around screaming until well past quiet hours, signs everywhere that say absolutely no dogs. Even if you're in the day use area where you can have a dog, they don't even want you walking your dog through the campground. So don't even think about it, no dogs. So that was our weekend. At this point, it is just about time to check out, so we're gonna pack things up and get ready to go. As we started to drive home, Pat and I discussed whether or not we wanted to do the balloon festival again next year. And we both agreed that it would be nice to go back to the festival, but we probably won't camp at Spruce Run again, which is a shame because the property is beautiful, there are lots of things to do, but we just had a bad feeling about some of the ways that the campground was run, unfortunately. So we would probably find somewhere else to stay. Sometimes when you go camping, you get an awesome experience immersed in nature and you get to relax, and other times you learn valuable lessons.
Well, you worried about you and me, the injustice, the next president to be, the news and what you hear, your career. It's time for you to face those fears, and it's all fair to be where and I'll be there. So don't be scared. Just take a deep breath of air. And 1, 2, 3 to 10, you begin to focus again. And though time flies, we'll have enough to realize this bigger than the both of us.